Okay. Looks like we are recording. Very good. Okay. Uh, any questions, comments so far?
Just that's interesting. I've never heard anything about that at all.
Right, right. And so the early Christian leaders, when they were trying to convert all of Europe and all in parts of Asia and Asia Minor and Africa and all over, trying to convert people to Christianity, they they said, hey, let's say that Jesus was born on December 25th too, because all of their previous gods have that same birthday. So let's go ahead and make it easy for them, because if you're born on December 25th, that's like a signal. It's a message from the universe that this is someone special, right? So that's why the early Christians decided to move Jesus' birthday from the springtime uh, into December 25th. Now, of course, there's if you believe the Bible, or if you at least believe some of the Bible, um, it makes perfect sense that Jesus was born in the springtime, because we have the evidence of Roman taxation record. And if you're not familiar with your Bible, it says that Caesar decided that there should be a tax, and everyone had to go to their own hometown to enlist or write down your name and be recorded and pay your tax. And so that's why Mary and Joseph were traveling to Bethlehem, because that was his hometown. He was there to go be recorded to pay his tax. So one of the things that we do when in this presentation, and as an astrologer, when you're looking at things like the Bible, you try to piece together, like a detective, little bits of evidence. And so if you take the Bible at face value, you have to believe there was a Roman taxation going on at the time of Jesus' birth. And so it's actually, you're able to look this up. The Romans kept records that have survived, and we see that there were three taxations close to 0 AD. One was about 20 BC, one was about 14 AD, and one was 7 BC. And as it turns out, what also happened in 7 BC was a meeting in the sky between the planets Jupiter and Saturn in the sign of Pisces. And so this is the clue, the first clue that the year was 7 BC, because Saturn and Pisces don't meet, excuse me, Saturn and Jupiter don't meet up every year, and they don't meet up in Pisces every century. There's actually been only 14 years in which Saturn and Jupiter met in the sign of Pisces over the last 3,500 years. That's 3,500 years. Actually, I'm going 500 years before Christ, all the way up to 1,000 years from now. There will only be 14 days total in 3,500 years in which Saturn and Jupiter meet in the sign of Pisces. So this is another clue, because Pisces, like I mentioned, is the most spiritual sign there is. Saturn is the planet that represents the Jews. Judaism is a super Saturnine religion. It's a super Saturnine culture. That's why they're always guilt tripping each other, right? Saturn's like no fun. Saturn is like, do what you're supposed to do, and oh, he's the taskmaster. And the other thing is that the Jewish Sabbath is celebrated on Saturn's day, right? Saturday. Saturn's day is the Jewish Sabbath. So they're an extremely Saturnine culture. So the planet Saturn represents the Jews, okay? The planet Jupiter represents the king of the gods. So when the planet Jupiter meets the planet Saturn in the sign of Pisces, it's like, okay, there might be something special going down in the land of the Jews. Are you following me so far, y'all? Is this making sense?
Yes.
Mhm. I'm taking notes.
So, yeah, so every astrologer, and by the way, I'm going to type in Christine's name here. This presentation that you are watching now is based in large part on the work. I can't type and talk at the same time. Sorry. Here we go. Christine Ahrens. She's an astrologer that did all of the research over a matter of decades. She's also a member of Mensa. So she's not just like some goofball astrologer like me, right? She's like a smart cookie. Real smart. So, and what she did was she looked at all the other astrologers' work because some said he's born on this day, some said on that day, and some said maybe this other day, but almost all of them said 7 BC. That is undisputed amongst the foremost researchers into this, is that 7 BC is the year. And then there is another um, biblical piece of evidence to support 7 BC, and that is the birth of John the Baptist. If you remember your Bible, you'll recall that John the Baptist is the first cousin of Jesus, and that he was born 6 months before Jesus, according to the Bible. Well, if you want to Google the birth date of John the Baptist, it's going to be 7 BC. So it's already down on record that John the Baptist is known to have been born in 7 BC. And if you, again, if you take the Bible at face value, then Jesus is born in 7 BC also, or at least very close. So you see how we have another little bit of evidence and we're starting to pull these together. Are y'all tracking this?
Yes.
Yeah.
The
So
layers,
what's that?
different layers.
Yeah, it's just one on top of another.
Yeah.
So let's turn to the three wise men now, to see what they were up to. Let me let me do. Okay, let me see if I can share my screen with you. Reaction, share screen, window. Okay. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. There's the three wise men following the star. All right, I'm gonna pause for just 1 second, y'all. I've got another message coming in. Let's see. Okay. I should make myself undisturbable. One moment. Okay. So here we have the three wise men. And the most important thing I think to keep in mind about the three wise men is that they were all from different places. If you recall the traditions, One was from India, one was from Arabia, and one was from Ethiopia. And they all saw the same thing in the sky. Or, in other words, they saw the astrology charts, like the same ones that I use today. We draw a picture of the sky and show where the planets are scattered around the zodiac. Well, they saw this coming, just like um, I can see things coming with my astrology book, which basically lays out um, like this is what's going down in May of 2027. It's right there in my book. I can see it coming right well in advance. And so these astrologers were seeing something extraordinary coming, and what they were seeing was Jupiter and Saturn meeting in the sign of Pisces. And one guy saw it from India, and one guy saw it from Arabia, and one guy saw it from Ethiopia. Um, and they all said, "Wow, I better get my butt over to Jerusalem because this is going to be something phenomenal happening in Jerusalem." And I'll get into that the location in a moment. But that's it. They didn't know each other beforehand. There's absolutely no way someone in Ethiopia is in communication with someone in India. They didn't have communication over thousands of miles back then. Y'all understand that?
Yes.
It did not happen. It was impossible, you know? But they all sought themselves and converged on Jerusalem at the same time, because it's not just it's space and time, it's being in the right place at the right time. So when you listen to the Bible account, they say that they go to Jerusalem and they talk to Herod, King Herod, who's not a nice guy, by the way. If you recall, Herod killed one of his wives, killed one of his children, and then, of course, after Jesus' birth, he killed every single baby in Israel who was 2 years old or younger. So not a nice guy. Anyway, but he is the king, so they go talk to him, and they say, "We have seen who is the new king because we have seen his star in the east." Okay. Now, if you're in India, if you see a star in the east, why are you traveling 1,000 miles to the west to Jerusalem? It's not that they were following, literally seeing a thing in the sky and walking towards it, which is what you hear in the Bible or in the songs. They were seeing a conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, two very bright things, in the charts. It actually shows up in the east in the sky, but for for reasons I'm about to tell you, they went to Jerusalem because that was the important point on the earth to be at the time when they actually met up. So yeah, we have three wise men. They're also known as the Magi. They're also known as the three kings. Keep in mind the Magi. The word Magi is the root for the word magic. It's also the root for the word majesty. So back in the old days, only the kings and priests were allowed to study astrology. So astrology is a very special and sacred and important study. It gives me and anyone else who chooses the ability to see things that are coming up, to see momentous things coming up. So I'll give you an example that in 2019, every astrologer who looked at world events said, "Are y'all ready for January of 2020? Because we know something major is going to come down. We may not know exactly what, but we can see something stirring up in the heavens and it's going to go down on January 12th, 2020 was the meeting of Saturn and Pluto. Well, that was the first day that the first reported case of COVID happened in the news. So um, that's what we're talking about. We as astrologers are able to see monumental things coming down the pike. And that's exactly what these guys saw. So they were magi, which means they were astrologers, which means they understood magic. And magic is not just doing card tricks. Magic is being able to manipulate space and space and time and physical matter. It's a high order of uh, of skill rather than just like being entertaining. So yeah, these guys were on top of it. They saw what was going down, and they knew that they had to get to Jerusalem. And this is now I'll tell you why Jerusalem was the point to be. It's because on the same day that Jupiter and Saturn met exactly, there was also a new moon the exact same day when the sun and the moon meet, right? So that's another extraordinary phenomena. I mentioned that sun and I mentioned Saturn and Jupiter have met 14 times in the sign of Pisces over a 3,500-year period. Well, only one time do they meet on the same day as a new moon, and it was in
Mm.
7C. So
Wow.
we've got the sun and the moon meeting at the same time Jupiter and Saturn are meeting, and there's only one longitude on the earth where the sun and the moon meet at the same place where the heaven and the earth meet. In other words, the eastern horizon is meeting of earth and sky or heaven and earth, right? And so that being born right around sunrise is another one of the long standing traditions in esoteric studies about special people, right? And so Jesus is not the only one. Both Augustus Caesar and the Emperor Nero were said to have been born at sunrise. And so this is why they claim to be able to be emperor. I am a child of God because I was born at sunrise. Um, the Magi actually went to visit Nero on his coronation. There's actually a recorded record of other Magi going to visit Nero because they thought he was something special because he was born at sunrise or just a hair before. So that's another thing that happened only on the same longitude as Jerusalem, and there were no other cities or major cities uh, on that longitude. So that's why they went to Jerusalem. Now, I was teaching this class or giving this presentation a couple of years ago, and one of my students said, "Oh, well, if that's the way you tell a holy man or a spiritual leader is born, what about the Dalai Lama?" I said, "Well, that's a good question. Let's take a look at the Dalai Lama's chart and see what it says." And sure enough, we go here, and there's the Dalai Lama, and lo and behold, well, where's my cursor? There's the sun sitting right on or just below the eastern horizon. Oh, is it not showing y'all the
I think you have to
that's
click on it.
I'm seeing it on my I'm seeing it on my laptop, but I'm not seeing it there. Let's try that. Let me go back to school. School, where are you? Share screen. No. There we go. Come on, there you go. There you see the sun right on the eastern horizon for the Dalai Lama.
Hmm.
So again, this is another bit of evidence. We're tying together a couple of really once in a long, long time phenomenon. The fact that Jupiter and Saturn meet in the sign of Pisces, okay, that's not that uncommon. Um, but I mean, 14 times in 3,500 years. Okay. Um, but the fact that there was a full moon, excuse me, a new moon happening on the exact same day, that is extraordinary. That's what brought these three wise men, these three magi to Jerusalem to find out who was going to be born at this time. And so now I shall present, if I can get the screen share, I will show you the birth chart of Jesus. And I have to tell y'all, um, I was not anticipating this um, sign. It's the last sign I would have guessed. Let's see if that's going to show up. Um, Let me try this one more time. I'm still getting used to how school works. Share screen, window, there it is. So here we have the birth chart of Jesus. And yes, he is a he's actually a quadruple Gemini.
Hmm.
His birthday was May 29th, 7 BC, 7 or 4:57 a.m. Right as the sun, you see the sun at 4 degrees, 12 minutes, that's 12 fractions of a degree. Um, of Gemini, the moon at 4 degrees and 11/60ths of a degree, the rising sign or the degree on the ascendant, 4 degrees and 11 minutes. This, we would say, is the moment that both the sun and the moon rose together on the horizon. I mean, it's really, really cool to have the sunrise at your birth, but to have the sun and the moon rising at the same time is extra special. So again, we're blending the opposites here, the sun and the moon, which is the masculine and the feminine, the day and the night, right? The earth and the sky, the Jupiter, which is the expansive principle, Saturn, which is the contractive principle. Those are energetic opposites in astrology. And if you look up here, you will see Jupiter 20 degrees, 53 minutes, Saturn at 20 degrees, 54 minutes of Pisces. And so this combination, those two being together on the same day that these two were together, Jupiter and Saturn would become exact within a matter of hours. I'll show you if we forward that. Uh, a few hours, there you see by 10 a.m. they were exactly at the same degree and fraction of a degree. So I'm gonna take it back here. So yeah, this is this is the birth chart, and what's really cool about using this birth chart is that it also sets up the things that happen in Jesus' life in the following days and also the following years. So, for example, um, and you have to understand the Bible story. the birth story, um, the three wise men were not present at the birth. They showed up later. And so what happened was, according to the Bible, um, they went to Herod and said, "Where is the king of the Jews?" And he says, "Oh, I don't know. Um, what what brings you here?" They say, "Well, we saw his star in the east. We came here to honor him." He said, "Well, I don't know where he is, but when you find him, let me know so I can honor him too." And of course, that wasn't his plan. But what happened was, once the baby is born, the mother is considered um, unclean, or in Jewish tradition, she's considered unclean, and can't really take any visitors for, I think, a week. The other thing is, the boy gets circumcised on the eighth day after he's born. So he's born on this day. It's a Friday, by the way. And by the next Saturday, they take him to the rabbis to have him circumcised. And at this point in time, the word is spread all over Jerusalem. And by the way, you know that Bethlehem is just that far south of Jerusalem, right? So they're almost identical in terms of their location. Um, and it says in the Bible um, that King Herod was troubled, and all of Jerusalem was troubled as well. So the word was going out that someone special has been born. And so by the time Mary and Joseph are able to leave the house, or wherever they're staying, she's no longer unclean. And the boy is at the age to get circumcised. They go to the rabbis, and the rabbis are like, "Oh, this is the kid. He was born 8 days ago. Listen, y'all, Herod's looking for you. You need to hightail it out of here." Okay. So they travel to Nazareth, and which is about 3 or 4 days journey north of Jerusalem. And so the three wise men talk to the rabbis. They find out where this kid's going, and they follow him. And so it's roughly about 12 days after his birth that the wise men show up and deliver their gifts. And the thing is that 12 days after Friday, May 29th, 2000 or 007 BC, was the day Mercury went retrograde.
Mm.
And when you look at this chart, I'll show you the chart one more time. Jesus' chart is dominated by Mercury. He is born in the sign of Gemini, which is ruled by Mercury. His sun is in Gemini. His moon is in Gemini. His rising sign is Gemini. Mercury, the planet that rules Gemini, is also in Gemini. Okay, so any of you who are Virgos or Geminis know that when Mercury goes retrograde, you really feel it. It's a major turning point in the month, so to speak. And when we look at our progressions, which is another astrological tool we use for looking in the future, in progressions, a day is a fractal of what happens a year later. So 12 days after Jesus is born, Mercury goes retrograde. Well, 12 years after he was born also is reflected in the Bible, because that's when he shows up at the temple and he starts preaching. And all the elders and all the priests are like, "Wow, who is this kid? This is amazing," right? So it fits the another Bible story. This date fits that Bible story as well. And then the other thing, and this is really the kicker, is that we have progressions and transits to match up for 33 years later, for the date and time of his crucifixion.
Hmm.
And so I will show you. Let's see. And remember, well, let's see. Let me go back to my share first. You remember that Jupiter and Saturn being together was the big deal, right? That was like, okay, that doesn't happen every year. So we're gonna take a look here at the birth chart that shows Jupiter and Saturn at 20 degrees of Pisces, and then his rising sign 4 degrees of Sagittarius. Now, if any of you have listened to me before, you know you have to have heard me say that the rising sign is the most important thing in the chart. It's the starting point for the whole chart. It defines your purpose. It's the most important thing. The sun is the biggest thing. The ascendant is the most important thing. So here with Jesus, we have the sun and the ascendant brought together. Again, that's another reason why people born right at sunrise are considered extra special, whether it's the Dalai Lama, Jesus, or Augustus Caesar. So here we are at 4 degrees Gemini. That's the most important point on Jesus' chart. Now, if we look up the day of his crucifixion, and I got this set to March 25th of 28 AD, a Friday, as it says in the Bible, you look and see that Pluto, the god of death, transformation, and rebirth, is sitting at 4 degrees of Sagittarius, exactly opposite his ascendant at 4 degrees Gemini. You see that 4 degrees and 11 minutes of a degree. And down here we got Pluto at 4 degrees and 13 minutes. That's that's 2/30ths. That's 1/30th of a degree from exact. Okay, it just doesn't get much closer than that. I should also point out that this point, 4 degrees Sagittarius, because it occupies this point in the chart, this is known as the house of marriage and the house of open enemies. So you've got Pluto, the god of the underworld, the planet of death, transformation, and rebirth, right on this point as he is being crucified. Now, I think I should tie in another interesting bit of evidence, and I don't know whether this counts as factual, but it is a tradition amongst some people that Jesus and Mary Magdalene were married. Um, and I tend to believe that. But the part that I've read in one account is that Mary Magdalene conceived their child in the last week of Jesus' life. And so you see that Pluto hanging out at that point of marriage along, and again, Pluto representing transformation, death, rebirth. It just adds up on so many levels, tying in with your marriage, the sort of the holy meaning of the marriage perhaps was to bring in this child, and the conception happened at the same time. Um, that's to me that's just phenomenal. I will also point out. Let me share the screen one more time. That if you look at this chart, you see Pluto. And by the way, let's see, that's the natal chart. Here's the crucifixion chart. And you see Pluto at 4 13 and it's going retrograde, well, I can move this chart forward in time, and you go forward 3 days to the day he was resurrected, and Pluto is actually it's actually, well, shoot, it's supposed to say 11. Anyway, Pluto's staying close to it's even closer to that exact point, 4 degrees 11 minutes on the resurrection. So it's like the god of death and rebirth hanging out in your house of marriage and open enemies at the exact time that you are literally going. Oh, dang, you can't see this screen. I'm sorry. Y'all holler at me if you can't see the screen when I'm talking about it. Anyone there? Y'all hear me?
I'm here.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Holler at me if you can't see
Yes,
the
I can
screen,
hear you.
okay?
Mhm.
Let me know. Um, let me go back to the screen share. Let's see, where are we? School, screen share, window. Okay, there it is. So yeah, you move the chart forward
That's when it cuts
by.
off.
Oh, okay. Well, we just won't animate it. I'll just have to describe it for you.
Okay.
But yeah, his chart, the Pluto gets even closer to that exact degree. And again, if this birth time is off by a few seconds or a minute or two, it's going to be exact. So yeah, suffice it to say that the planet of transformation was happening at one of the most sensitive points on Jesus' chart at the moment he was transforming. Um, so yeah, it all fits. And so if that wasn't enough, now we're going to look at the progressions for that day, and this is even more staggering. Remember his Saturn and his Jupiter, which was the main thing that the wise men were looking at. His Saturn and his Jupiter met each other on at 20 degrees of Pisces. Well, we look at the progressions for the day of his crucifixion, and this is, and again, progressions are, what am I looking at here? Hang on one second, y'all. Oh yeah, the midheaven, right? The progressed midheaven. So the midheaven represents your calling in life. So the progressed midheaven is now at 20 degrees of Pisces. So it's like the whole reason you're put on this earth is represented by the midheaven, and it
Mm.
meets the Jupiter Saturn that in his birth chart was at 20 degrees of Pisces. Are y'all following me?
Yeah.
Is this making sense? I know you're not all astrologers, but
Mhm.
you kind of see how we're tying these together?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so if that wasn't enough, um, look at the sun right here. And again, the sun and the ascendant are the same because he's born at sunrise. 6 degrees, 26 minutes of Cancer. Okay, that's his progressed sun and his progressed ascendant. 6 degrees, 26 minutes of Cancer. So if we go up here to his birth chart, let me share that screen now. You'll see that his Venus is located at 6 degrees, 27 minutes of Cancer. So the sun had progressed to meet Venus that year, right? It's a slow moving process. They were exact to the minute on the day of the crucifixion, but that year, and I'm going to suggest that that is the year that he married Mary Magdalene, because that's what progressed Venus, or that's what Sun progressed to Venus means in your chart, in my chart, and anyone else's chart. When progressed Sun meets Venus is when you get married. So
Mm.
yeah. So this is all this, all of this only fits if you were born on May 20, what is it? May 29th of 7 BC. So you got Jupiter and Saturn in Pisces, which is very rare. You got a full moon on the exact same day, which hasn't happened for well over 3,500 years. You have
A new, excuse me, new moon.
a new moon. We have it on the horizon. It can only happen. That's what I say. This when the sun and the moon meet. That's a new moon, right?
Mhm.
It's only happening on the horizon in one location on the earth, and that happened to be Jerusalem, Bethlehem, right? You
Mhm.
got the three astrologer wise men who are tracking this and showing up in Jerusalem. At the same time, you got the Roman taxation happening in that year. You have the birth of John the Baptist in the same year. And then you have all these other things that fall into place. Now, I should mention that a lot of people would not guess Gemini for some obvious reasons, because Gemini doesn't seem that spiritual. But what you know, if you've studied my work, or if you've been to my class on the chakras, you know that first off, Mercury is the messenger of the gods in Greek mythology. So he represents the throat chakra. And of course, Jesus' main job was preaching. He was teaching, preaching the gospel, sharing the good news, spreading the good news. And the other main thing that he did, at least according to the Christian tradition, is he performed miracles. He laid his hands on people and healed them. And Gemini in astrology rules the shoulders, arms, hands, right? So Jesus is like the perfect Gemini in that sense. Does somebody have something to say? I hear a little click. No? Okay.
No.
Yeah. Gemini, or excuse me, Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, is also the god of magic. And it's interesting that in the Bible, Jesus is a 5-letter word. Now, his actual name was not Jesus; it was probably Yeshua. But the Bible is being written to put forth a message. Those who have eyes to see will see the message. And when you look at guys like Jesus, who is a magi with a 5-letter name, and remember, Mercury is the 5th chakra, just like Moses is also a 5-letter name. They were both magi. And the magi, the three kings, they're called kings to try to get away from astrology, but that's just in one song. But they're the magi. The three magi came to visit Jesus at his birth. The three magi were coming to visit their king. Because none of those other three guys had been born during a triple conjunction of sun, moon, and rising sign in Gemini. At the same time, there was the planet of the kingmaker, Jupiter, meeting the planet of Saturn, the manifester. Jesus was the prime magi amongst other things. So, um, yeah, magic, magical, magi. It's all tied together. And then the last little bit is the virgin birth. Okay. And I mean, how many of y'all have given birth?
Yeah, me.
Me.
Couple of y'all out there. So can you even imagine not having a sperm put in you and getting pregnant? And
Uh-uh.
that's kind of a stretch, right?
A little bit.
In fact,
Yeah.
that was the first thing I said when my son was born. I was there in the hospital. I was right there in the room. And when he was born, the first thing I said to myself was, immaculate conception? No effing way. Okay. The virgin birth is a metaphor. Okay. It's a metaphor for purity and divine connection. But what's interesting is that if you're a Gemini, if you're born as a Gemini, you go back 9 months, you were conceived during the time of Virgo, the virgin.
Hmm.
That's what they're talking about. He was conceived during Virgo.
Wow.
So yeah, I hope I have tied all this together for you. I hope it's making sense. I hope you can see there's ample evidence, both factual and uh, what's the word?
Historical.
Well, it's historical, but what's the other word? Anecdotal, right? Um, we don't know that everything in the Bible happened the way it was said, but the way it was said matches all of the astrology to the T. It's not like kind of sort of. It's like right on the money. So this matches it matches tradition. It matches astronomy. It matches Roman historical records. It matches the stories in the Bible on all of those levels. So that, my friends, I believe to be Jesus' birthday.
Thank you. That's fascinating.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Well, like I said, Christine Ahrens did the original presentation on this. She deserves most of the credit for all of this. The thing is, her presentation, and you can see her presentation on YouTube, but she's talking to other astrologers, and so she's doing a lot of stuff that, I mean, this is probably too much astrology for some of you, even though I was softening it up a bit with storytelling. But yeah, hers is like pure dry astrology, and it's bad audio as well. So I've sort of taken all of her facts and made notes and added just a few of my things in there, like the throat chakra and the meeting of the opposites there. So yeah, bada boom.
I enjoyed it.
Thank
Thank you so
you.
much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, y'all
I enjoyed
have
it
any?
very much.
Who is this? Kathy, my friend Kathy Gattuso. She's born on Christmas Day. That's great, Kathy. Listen, does anyone have a question or a comment about anything before we wrap it up here?
I don't
Not
think I
yet.
don't.
I don't.
Right. Well, listen, now that you're all part of my school community, you're all welcome to tune in. I do free Q&A every week. I think it's tomorrow night we'll be doing, ask the astrologer any question you want. So if you want to ask a question about your chart, or if you want to ask a question about what astrology is all about, and pardon me one second, I'm going to stop this recording now that we're doing business. Oh, let's see. Stop recording. There we go.